Hey friends, welcome back to Better on Purpose. It's good to be back with you again this week, and wherever you're listening from or whatever you're doing while you're listening, I'm glad you're here. I've been thinking a lot lately about how easy it is to miss what's right in front of us. Not necessarily because we're ungrateful, not because we don't love our lives or the people in them. Sometimes we're just busy. Sometimes we're distracted. Sometimes we're navigating something difficult. Sometimes we're thinking about what used to be or anticipating whatever is coming next. And meanwhile, life just keeps lifing. We're doing laundry, we're driving back and forth to work, we're getting kids where they need to go, we're answering emails, we're figuring out dinner, we're making plans and changing plans and trying to keep up with everything that comes with being a person. And somewhere in all of that ordinary stuff, we're living the days that will eventually become the stories we tell. And that's really what I want to talk about today. Being here for our lives while they're actually happening. And some of what got me thinking about this came through things that are a little heavier. Loss has felt a little more present around me lately. And I think anytime that happens, it can naturally make you look at your own life and the people in it a little differently. And while that's part of what led me here, I don't want this to feel like a heavy conversation. If anything, all of those reminders have had me thinking more about what's still right in front of us, the people who are here, the time we have with them, the lives we're living right now, what it looks like to love people well, to make the memories, to notice the ordinary moments, and even to appreciate what something is now when part of us still misses what it used to be. And strangely enough, all of those thoughts kind of collided for me while I was folding laundry at midnight. Because apparently midnight is when we're folding laundry these days, or at least when I'm folding laundry. I was sitting there putting clothes away when my phone went off, and it was my sister. Now, my sister lives on the East Coast, so my first thought is, it's midnight. Girl, why are you awake? But she had sent me a screenshot announcing that someone had passed away. Someone who was a pretty significant part of our childhood through the shows and movies we grew up watching together. And I'd already seen the news of that earlier that day, and it had caught me off guard then too. But when my sister sent it to me, I immediately understood why. Of course she sent it to me because we watched those shows together. We grew up with those movies. And I think most of us have certain people, songs, movies, shows, whatever it might be, that somehow become attached to a specific time in our lives. So when we hear that someone associated with those memories is gone, even if we've never met them, it can affect us in a way we weren't necessarily expecting. Of course, losing someone we personally know and love is completely different. Those aren't the same kinds of grief. But hearing about someone's passing can still touch something in us. Maybe they remind us of our childhood. Maybe their music takes us back to a particular season. Maybe their work is connected to someone we love. Or maybe it simply makes us stop for a second and recognize the passing of time. But what struck me most about the text from my sister was realizing what I had already done earlier that day. I had texted my mom. Basically, just a, "Mom, did you see this?" Because she knew too. She knew what those shows and movies meant in our house growing up. My sister reached for me. I had reached for my mom, and I started thinking about how often those kinds of reminders make us reach for the people who are still here. Suddenly, we want our people a little closer, and maybe that's part of why all of this has been so present in my mind lately. I have people I care about who are grieving right now. Some have experienced more than one loss in a relatively short amount of time. Those aren't my stories to tell, so I won't dive into the details of those, but most of us probably know what it feels like to love someone who is grieving. You hurt because they hurt. You wish there were something you could say or do to make it better, knowing there really isn't. And sometimes watching someone we care about navigate grief makes us look a little differently at the people in our own lives. Our parents, our spouses, our siblings, our friends, our children, the people we can't imagine doing life without. And sometimes those reminders have a way of making us notice what we still have. And that's really the part I've been thinking about. The people who are here, the time we have right now, and what we're doing with it. I will fully admit that the idea of losing people I love scares me. There are so many things in life we simply can't predict or control. I have my faith, I have what I believe, I have what I was raised believing, and I trust in those things, but faith is faith. There are still unknowns. My husband has a much more matter-of-fact perspective on all of this than I do. He's mentioned to me before that loss is an inevitable part of living, and that's true. And he's gone into how if we spend our time worrying about something we ultimately can't control, we're giving away valuable time we could have spent actually living. And I'm like, okay, sir, very emotionally mature of you. I'm not there yet, but I do understand his point. We do not have to eliminate every fear about what might happen someday to recognize when worrying about the future is interfering with actually being present for the life we have. And fear isn't the only thing that can pull us out of the present. Change can do it too. Our attachment to the way something used to be, that'll do it. And I got a glimpse of that this weekend. I went to a gathering that in another season of my life, I would have been exceptionally excited about. And I was, but it was the kind of thing I genuinely enjoy. Community, people I care about, kids are running around, games, food, people hanging out together. But because of a season that I'm currently navigating, I was nervous about going. And part of me thought maybe I'll show up a little late, or maybe I'll leave a little early, just make an appearance. And instead, I got there pretty close to when it started. And I stayed until it was almost over. But I was uncomfortable. Nobody had done anything to make me uncomfortable. Nobody mistreated me. Nobody made me feel unwelcome. There wasn't some big incident. It was all quite the opposite, actually, but I still just didn't quite know what to do with myself because there was another version of me who would have known exactly how to operate in that space. She would have known where to go, what needed to be done, who needed help. She probably would have been taking pictures and videos and capturing memories. She would have known her role. And now I'm learning how to exist in some of those same spaces differently. There were moments where I felt awkward and uncertain. And historically, discomfort like that can trigger me into kind of leaning into, okay, we can go now. I've talked before about being someone who has a tendency to run from hard. When something feels uncomfortable, there's a part of me that is real quick to remind myself that technically I don't have to be here. And technically I didn't have to be there this weekend, but I stayed. I stayed. Not because everything suddenly became comfortable. It didn't. Not because I figured everything out. I didn't. And not because I suddenly knew exactly where I fit. I didn't. I just stayed. And maybe you've had your own version of that. A place that used to feel completely natural suddenly doesn't. A relationship changes, your role changes, your family changes, you change. And suddenly you're trying to figure out how to exist in something you used to know by heart. Not every uncomfortable situation is one we're supposed to push through. Sometimes leaving absolutely is the healthy choice, but discomfort can also come with growth, with change, with learning how to exist differently than we used to. And sometimes we need to give the present a chance before deciding there's nothing for us there. Because we can spend so much time mourning an old version of something that we fail to experience what is right now. And sometimes the current version really is worse. Sometimes there's legitimate grief there. And we don't have to pretend every change is wonderful. Sometimes we liked it better before. Maybe the relationship was closer. Maybe the family looked different. Maybe our children needed us differently. Maybe a place felt more like home, or maybe we simply miss who we were in a certain season. We're allowed to grieve that. We're allowed to say, I liked this better before, but different doesn't automatically mean there's nothing left here. We can miss what was without deciding that what is has nothing for us. We can grieve backward without living backward, because meanwhile, life is happening. Our kids are growing up. Our parents are getting older. We're getting older. Relationships are changing. We're changing. And maybe that's a different way to think about the phrase, life is short. It doesn't have to be a warning. It can be an invitation, not an invitation to panic and suddenly cram as much as humanly possible into every single day, because that sounds exhausting. And trust me, I've been there. Living life to the fullest doesn't mean every day needs to be an adventure. Most of life is pretty ordinary. It's folding laundry at midnight. It's driving kids where they need to go. It's sitting around a table. It's a sibling texting when they should absolutely be asleep. It's our parents saying something that gets slightly under our skin. It's sitting at a picnic while kids play volleyball. It's the normal stuff. And the wild thing about ordinary moments is that we don't know which ones we're going to desperately miss someday. We don't know which ordinary moment is becoming a memory while we're standing in it. So maybe making the most of life isn't about making every moment extraordinary. Maybe it's about actually being present for more of the ordinary ones. Take the trip when you can. Make the memories. Take the pictures, and please get in some of the pictures. Ask the questions. Listen to the story. There are people in our families who carry stories that may disappear with them if nobody ever asks. And I've been thinking about that in my own family lately. There are stories I want to hear, questions I want to ask, things I want my children to know someday. And those are the kinds of things that are so easy to put into the eventually category. Eventually I'll ask. Eventually we'll sit down. Eventually I'll call. Eventually we'll take the trip. Eventually I'll make time. And eventually is such an easy place to put things. And most of the time, eventually probably does come until one day it doesn't. But I also don't want to turn being intentional into another form of pressure. We can become so busy that trying to create memories that we forget to experience them. And we can convince ourselves that we'll be more present later when this relationship gets better, when I feel like myself again, when my kids get through this stage, when work calms down, when I figure out where I belong, when this season is over, then I'll enjoy my life. Except this is our life. This isn't the waiting room before real life starts again. And I think that's what staying represented for me this weekend. I didn't stay because I needed to prove something. I stayed because there were still people I loved there. There were still moments available to me to make memories. And the present deserved a chance to be something without constantly having to compete with what the past had been. That doesn't mean pretending everything is exactly how we want it. It just means we don't have to abandon what's still here because we're grieving what's different. And maybe you're in a season that doesn't look the way you thought it would. Maybe a relationship changed. Maybe your family looks different. Maybe you're grieving someone or even grieving a version of yourself. Maybe you're standing in something that changed around you, trying to figure out who you are in it now. You don't have to fix all of that today, but you can stay for your life. And staying for your life doesn't mean staying in every relationship or remaining somewhere you're being harmed, because sometimes loving someone does include a boundary. Sometimes we can deeply love someone and still recognize that doing life closely together isn't healthy. Distance and love can exist at the same time, but there are still questions worth asking. How do I want to love people while they're here? What do I want them to know? What am I putting off that actually matters to me? Who have I been meaning to call? What question have I been meaning to ask? And what part of my life am I overlooking because it doesn't look the way it used to? I'm definitely not delivering this from the other side of having everything all figured out. I still worry about things I can't control. I still overthink a moment while I'm standing right in the middle of it. I'm still figuring out when discomfort means go and when it means give this a chance. But this weekend, I stayed. Nobody else there probably thought anything of it, but I know what it meant for me. And that's enough, because living better on purpose doesn't always look like some huge transformation. Sometimes it's deciding not to run. Sometimes it's making the call. Sometimes it's asking the question. Sometimes it's taking the picture. Sometimes it's putting the phone down. And sometimes it's simply looking around at the people who are still here and recognizing this counts too. This version counts too. This ordinary day counts. This season counts. None of us knows exactly how much time we get. And hopefully we have a really, really long time. Hopefully the people we love do too. But worrying about someday doesn't have to steal the time we still have together today. So maybe that's something we can practice this week. Stay for your life. Love your people while they're here. Give them their flowers while they're here. Miss what was without deciding that what is has nothing left for you. Your life isn't waiting for you somewhere in the future. It's happening now. Be here for it. And as always, let's keep choosing to show up better on purpose. I'll talk to you next week.